Have you ever wondered what it would be like to witness the end of the world? For the people living in the 5th century AD, the collapse of the Western Roman Empire felt just like that. For 500 years, Rome had been the center of the known world, a seemingly eternal city and empire that stretched from the cold shores of Britain to the sandy deserts of Syria. Its fall wasn't a single event, but a slow, agonizing decline, a story so epic it has fascinated us for centuries. So, how did the mightiest empire in history crumble to dust? Let's dive in and uncover the truth behind the fall of Rome. To understand the fall, we first have to appreciate what Rome was. Imagine an empire with a million-man army, incredible feats of engineering like aqueducts that carried water for miles, and a legal system so advanced it still influences ours today. It was a civilization of immense power, wealth, and culture. But beneath this glittering surface, cracks were beginning to show long before the final collapse. One of the biggest culprits was what historians call the crisis of the 3rd century. Think of it as a perfect storm. The empire became too big to govern effectively. From 235 to 80 for AD, Rome was torn apart by constant civil war. Generals were more interested in fighting each other for the throne than defending the borders. In just 50 years, there were more than 20 emperors, most of whom were assassinated. This political instability was a cancer eating away at the heart of the empire. With everyone fighting internally, the borders were left vulnerable. And that brings us to the second major factor, barbarian invasions. Now, when we say barbarian, don't just picture savage hordes. These were complex groups of people like the Goths, Vandals, and Franks who were being pushed towards Roman territory by other migrating groups like the Huns from Central Asia. At first, Rome tried to manage them, sometimes hiring them as mercenaries, other times settling them on borderlands. But this was a dangerous game. These groups weren't always loyal and eventually realized they were strong enough to take what they wanted. Imagine you're a Roman citizen living near the frontier. For generations, the legions protected you. But now, the soldiers are gone, called away to fight in another civil war. Then, one day, you see warriors on the horizon, not Roman soldiers, but Goths or Vandals, here to plunder your town. This became the terrifying reality for millions. The year for 10 AD was a massive psychological blow. For the first time in 800 years, the city of Rome itself was sacked, this time by the Visigoths led by Alaric. The Eternal City was no longer untouchable. The message was clear: Rome was vulnerable. But the problems weren't just external. The Roman economy was in shambles. To pay for its massive army and extravagant government, emperors started devaluing the currency. They minted coins with less and less silver, causing rampant inflation. Prices skyrocketed and people's savings became worthless. At the same time, constant warfare disrupted trade routes. The flow of goods that was the lifeblood of the empire slowed to a trickle. Wealth became concentrated in the hands of a few super-rich landowners, while the middle class was crushed by taxes and the poor starved. Society was splitting apart. There was also a social and cultural shift happening. The rise of Christianity played a complex role. Some historians argue that the new religion, with its focus on the afterlife, and pacifism eroded the traditional Roman values of civic duty, military glory, and worship of the emperor. While many Christians served Rome loyally, the shift in focus from the state to the church undeniably changed the cultural landscape. The empire was no longer united by the old pagan gods and rituals that had defined it for centuries. Another fascinating and, frankly, kind of gross theory is lead poisoning. The Romans used lead for everything: water pipes, cooking pots, and even as a sweetener for wine. Some historians believe that widespread, low-level lead poisoning could have caused health problems, reduced fertility rates, and cognitive decline among the Roman elite, making them less capable of leading the empire through its crises. While it's probably not the main reason, it's a chilling reminder of how even unseen problems can contribute to a downfall. So you have political chaos, constant invasions, a failing economy, and social division. It's a recipe for disaster. In the late 4th century, Emperor Theodosius I made a fateful decision. Upon his death in 395 AD, he split the empire into two halves: the Western Roman Empire with its capital in Ravenna and the Eastern Roman Empire with its capital in Constantinople. The idea was to make it easier to govern, but the East was far wealthier and more stable. It could afford to pay off invaders or deflect them westward. The West, already poorer and weaker, was left to fend for itself. The final decades were a brutal story of disintegration. Britain was abandoned by the legions in 410, Gaul, modern-day France, was overrun by Franks, Burgundians, and Visigoths. Spain was lost. Then, in 455, the Vandals, who had crossed from Spain into North Africa and built a fleet, sailed across the Mediterranean and sacked Rome again, this time far more brutally than the Goths had. They stripped the city of its remaining wealth over 2 weeks of relentless looting. The final act was almost anticlimactic. The Western Roman emperors had become powerless puppets controlled by barbarian generals. The last Roman emperor wasn't a mighty Augustus or a cunning Constantine. He was a young boy, ironically named Romulus Augustulus. In 476 AD, a Germanic chieftain named Odoacer simply deposed him. He didn't even bother to kill him, he just sent him into a comfortable retirement. Odoacer didn't declare himself emperor. He just sent the imperial insignia to the Eastern Emperor in Constantinople, signaling that a separate Western emperor was no longer needed. And just like that, without a major battle or a grand finale, the Western Roman Empire was gone. But was it truly the end? In the West, yes, the central government collapsed, but life went on. Roman culture, law, and the Latin language didn't just disappear. They blended with the cultures of the Germanic peoples to form the foundations of medieval Europe. The Catholic Church, based in Rome, preserved much of the classical learning and became the main unifying force in the West, and in the East, the Roman Empire didn't fall at all. It thrived as the Byzantine Empire for another 1,000 years, a glittering beacon of civilization until it finally fell to the Ottoman Turks in 1453. The fall of Rome serves as a timeless warning. It shows how even the most powerful civilizations can collapse from a combination of internal decay and external pressures. It's a story of political corruption, economic inequality, overexpansion, and the failure to adapt to a changing world. When we look at the challenges facing our own societies today, the echoes of Rome's fall can feel disturbingly familiar. It reminds us that nothing is permanent and that history holds powerful lessons for those willing to listen. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey through the collapse of one of history's greatest empires. If you found this fascinating, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into history. What topic should we explore next? Let me know in the comments below. See you in the next video.